Hi guys, it's the Puppeteer here, broadcasting live from Perth in WA. Hope you're all going pretty well. This is going to be a little bit of a test to see how things go, but we're going to spend a little bit of time trying to run through just a few of the things on the PC3, and I hope you can see it all there okay. I'm still playing around a little bit with cameras to try and get it okay, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, what I wanted to do today was just take you through a few of the high level things about the Kurzweil PC3, and just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of some of the different things that are available in different modes mainly. So what we're going to do, I've got a couple of little graphics here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through the different modes of the PC3, and these are of course illustrated by the buttons that you have to the left of the screen, the program, Midi button, so forth. So these are the modes that we've got with the Kurzweil PC3. And at the top level you've got program mode, which is really the mode that you play most of your instruments in. It's a single MIDI channel, and you've got you can do all your programming in here in terms of your sounds. So you can build your sounds, you can make your lead sounds, your bass sounds, you can get right into the guts of the PC3 and make some really good sounds from within here. So I'll show you the PC3's program page just now. So you can see we're in program mode here. So along the bottom you've got the octave buttons, panic, info, and transpose buttons, and you can, using the buttons to the left of the display, you can change your MIDI channels, and for every MIDI channel you can have your own program assigned to it, and you can play it just by switching your MIDI channels as such. The next one that we use is the setup mode, and setup mode is really the control mode of the PC3, I guess. And within setup mode you can have all the programs existing, you can do splits, you can do layers, you can have things on different channels, and you can assign arpeggiators, you can put riffs into these, so every channel can have its own sequence, which is a riff. So your setup mode's more of a performance mode. It's when you want to have a lot of different sounds at your disposal. You've got buttons that you can use for mutes, you've got all your sliders are fully assignable, and you can basically build very complex synth objects within setup mode. So I'll just have a quick look at setup mode. So this is setup mode that you can see on the screen here. It is a little bit different from program mode, I guess, in appearance, but a lot of the stuff is the same. We're not going to go into the editing of setups today, we just want to give an overview, but setup mode is the most complex mode in terms of editing within the PC3, but it's also the most powerful. One thing to bear in mind with the PC3 is that you're always existing underneath a setup. So you've got something called a control setup, which is set in the MIDI pages, and that really is always active, and it's a special setup mode that enables it to host the programs. Alright, moving along, the next mode is quick access mode. Again, this is a performance mode. You can see it on the screen there in front of you, and really what this allows you to do is to use the keypad to very quickly select programs. So if you're playing a show, for example, you're playing a live show and you've maybe got 10 songs or 20 songs, and you need to be able to call up the different programs or different setups very quickly. Quick access mode is a very quick way of doing this. You can you can see here that you've got 10 programs sitting on the screen here, and each of these is assigned to a key. So if I press the number 2 key, for example, it jumps straight to the maroon synth bass. If I press the number 8, it jumps to the Fiddy LED. So it's really good from that point of view. You can swap programs and setups very quickly from within here. So these can be setups or programs. And again, you've got banks of these, so you can scroll up, and bank number 2, for example, is a synth bank. So we've got a Jupiter there on key number 2. So very good mode for using the PC3 Live. Okay, so moving along, we'll have a look at the little cheat sheet again. Moving along, the next mode that we've got here is the effects mode, and the effects mode, the effects button for this really does control. It's not so much an effects programming mode, but it controls the effects. It is where you program the master effects, because there is an effects bus just on the master. After it's gone through everything else on the PC3, before it emerges from the audio outputs, there is a master bus where you can put a compressor and EQ on it. Outside of that, you can also enable and disable the channel effects. You can override them from within here, and to be honest, it's not something that I use very much of, but it's there if you want to do it. It also, one of the most useful things about it is it does tell you your effects usage. So it tells you when you're running out of effects and which ones are enabled and which ones aren't enabled. You've got also the 2 auxiliary buses. You can control them directly from here, but more usually you want to program them within a program or within a setup. So it works for either of the auxiliary buses are global. So even though you might program them in program mode and get the auxiliary buses doing exactly what you want them to do, when you move across to setups, you lose all those auxiliary buses. So you can reprogram them if you want. You can, so that you've got some global effects that all of the programs from the different MIDI channels can go through. And for auxiliary effects, you're probably best off assigning things like reverbs to them, where it's a global. A reverb's kind of a global effect, and it's good to have that on an auxiliary bus where you can work on it. So this is a picture of the effects mode. You can see up the top you've got the different MIDI channels along here. Underneath you've got whether or not it's got effects assigned and whether or not they're enabled. So if it's got brackets around it, that means that there's effects assigned to that channel, like it wants to use them, but there's not enough resources, not enough effects resources to be able to use them. If there's no brackets and it says yes, then those effects are enabled. So if we turn these ones off, for example, on channel 2, you can see that all these other ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 example have come on. The PC3 is very powerful. There's a lot of effects available in it, but again, there are limitations to exactly what you can achieve. Guys, just if you are watching live, I can't see how many viewers are out there, but look, if you want to, there's a little comment box up to the right. If you've got any questions or any queries in that, just drop a note in there, and I'll see what I can do about answering your questions for you. Okay, so going in, we'll have a look at the auxiliary buses again. The override is where, if you want to, instead of assigning it from the setup or the program, you can actually override it within this effects mode. So this is where it is. This is where the effects mode comes in. Again, you've got 16 MIDI channels here. You can turn the overrides on. You've got output and a mod override, which allows you to assign a controller. And then you've got pre or post, which is what these little P's underneath are. So that allows you to, at an overall view, to quickly go through and change all of your channels in a very quick way. So that's really what the value of the effects mode is. Auxiliary 2 is exactly the same. It's just got auxiliary 2 instead of auxiliary 1. And master is where you can set those master effects I talked about earlier, which is the compressor and the EQ. The compressor is a multi-band EQ. It's a multi-band compressor. So it is quite a powerful compressor. The compressors on the PC3 and KDFX compressors in general, I find sound very, very good. They're very transparent, but they do the job very well. So having these here really it does allow you to control the dynamics a little bit better of the PC3. It's a very dynamic instrument, so these can come in handy, not just for boosting levels, but also just in general. Sorry if you got lag there between my voice and what I'm saying and the picture on the screen. It's still trying to work out a few of the kinks with the video system. Anyway, let's move along. We're halfway through the modes, and then we're going to go and talk a little bit more about the object structure within the PC3. So here we go. MIDI is the next mode. This is basically the central point of where you set all things MIDI. So it controls global things like, for example, transmit. This is where you can set that control setup I talked about before. By default, it's 126. So, again, you can turn on which which MIDI destinations that you want to transmit to, whether it's USB MIDI, the MIDI ports in the back, or just locally. So this is global. You can also control that at the setup level on different layers and different channels. But this one here is for global. It's got your currently selected channel, which is what your channel layer buttons select, and global transposition if you quickly need to transpose all parts on the things. There's a few other little settings there, such as a velocity map and pressure map. Receive is for the MIDI that's coming in. So again, you've got MIDI modes here. So you've got Omni, Multi, and Poly. Multi is what it comes with default. I've never really found a reason to change it, but I'm sure there is a reason. Multi just seems to work for everything. Again, you've got there's a few other controllers here in terms of processing and receiving MIDI. You've got your SysX ID. This is where it's set. So if you've got more than one PC3, you want to make sure that each of them's got its own SysX ID. If you're using the Sound Tower editor, for example, or if you're using any other programming method to dump or to pull programs such as the GTRC module that I've put out there for the PC3. And next you've got channels. So you can, this is sort of a central point. Again, you can turn channels on and off within the PC3. You can lock programs so that they don't change. You can lock the pan and lock the volume so that it doesn't respond to external signals. And you got a few other things such as you can send program changes directly from here, and you've also got resetting channel, and you've got panic from within the MIDI mode itself. The next one is master. So we're going to go into have a look at the master mode as well. Master mode really is the global settings for the PC3. So these are things that sort of sit outside of your programming environment to some extent. It controls how the keyboard's set up. It stores things like your programs, what programs are assigned to which channel, for example, is part of the master setup. You can change effects modes in here. You can control things like drum remapping. You can turn general MIDI mode on. You set things like tempo. This is where you can set your velocity maps, your default songs, things like that. You can set your intonation tables here if you're into your micro tuning. This is where you do a lot of that stuff. You set your output clock, so whether or not you're syncing to an external digital signal or not, and how the auxiliary pairs perform, whether or not it's a mirror of your main ones, which is handy if you've got a PA that you need to use, or whether you're looking at something, or whether you're using them as two parallel buses or two separate buses, as it were. You can set your tempo here. You can set your tap tempo as well. So this is where you can set that, or you can assign a controller to that within setup mode. General MIDI mode can be turned on and off here. This is where you can do some of your objects. You've got some utilities here, which is like looking at what's coming in over your MIDI, and also your voices. So your voices tells you how many voices are currently being used. You've got a handy clock there to say what time it is, but I think more importantly, this is for when you're saving programs. It gets written as part of your program. So, and you've got your hard reset in here. So this, if you have problems with your PC3 and you need to get it back to factory conditions, you can do this with a reset button. You've got the loader as well. This is where you do your updates for your if you've got a new operating system or a new set of objects, you can load these up within the loader, and save if you want to save your changes. For example, what you've got assigned, what programs are assigned to which channels, and that you can save your master table, and all of that stuff will get saved. Right, the next mode we're going to talk about is the song mode. The song mode is essentially the sequencer of the PC3. It's one of about 17 sequences on there, but it is a master one. So this is the sequencer that sits overall over the PC3, and you can assign stuff to different channels. Yeah, you can program things in here for use within setups as your riffs. So it's actually done within song mode, and then you can use songs that you save in this mode on your setups to, for example, to get your PC 3 triggering songs, triggering different. I guess they're called riffs, but they're different sequences on every single channel, and you can assign different programs to them. It can get quite complex. If you have a look at stats, you can see these are all the different songs that can be running within the PC3 at the same time. All of these songs can have different tempos, different bar lengths, different time signatures if you want. So all of these things are available simultaneously on the PC3. So it's very, very powerful in terms of what you can do with the sequencing, and it's really your imagination that is the limit to what you can do in the sequencing side. So you've got a lot of you've got song editors within here. You can create songs. You can record stuff in real time. Set your tempo. Do all the stuff that you can normally do with a sequencer. You can record all your controller movements can be recorded within this mode. It doesn't have the RAM tracks feature that the K2600 had, for example, but even so, it is still a very powerful sequencer. The final mode that we're going to talk about is the storage mode, and that's the storage page there. You can go and you can store and save all of your programs and objects, samples if you're on a PC3K. That can all be done within the storage mode. And you can, and again, this is where you load things from. There are some got some utilities here for copying and making directories, and you can also turn a USB drive on here. So if you've got it connected to your computer, you can open up a small USB drive. It's not very big, but it is a way to get programs across quickly. Probably not so great for loading samples, but it's great for reloading up a few programs or quickly getting a few programs onto your computer. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to have a bit of a look at the Kurzweil hierarchy and where different objects within the Kurzweil universe live within the PC3 and what they do. So I've built this little graphic here, which should be coming up on your screen about now, and basically what we're looking at is I guess the root of all of your sounds on the PC3 is called the sample, and the sample, I'm not sure how the volume is here. I might just crank it up a little bit. The samples, you have a number of samples. The PC3 really is a sampler, or it uses samples at the heart of everything it does. There are modes, the virtual analog modes, for example, which overwrite, it stops the audio from the samples going through and it instead generates its own waveforms. But some of the things from the samples can come through and affect it. For example, the envelopes. Every sample within the PC3, all the ROM samples certainly have got envelopes programmed into them, and when you put your own samples into the PC3K, for example, you can also have envelopes there. They can be used to affect the amplitude envelope. So your sample, there's always samples active. In any case, you've got 8 velocity levels that you can switch between samples, and this is done at the key map level. So when you so your samples really feed into a key map, and what the key map says is it says for every single key on the keyboard, it says I want to use this sample when I press this key. Now, don't get scared about it. You don't have to go and program every single key. You can program ranges of keys in one go. So you can set a high key and a low key, and you can say, right, I want this sample played over this range, and I want it to be transposed up and down keys. But you can also have separate sample sets for every velocity level, so for 8 different velocity levels. And so that's how they do the triple strike pianos, for example, and that's how how you get a lot of expression from the PC3 is that you can have all of these different samples. If you wanted to, you could make if you got the PC3 key, you can make a killer drum machine. You can assign 8 samples per key that are all velocity mapped across the entire keyboard. So you can have, I don't know, it's lots and lots and lots of drum sounds that are available at once on key map. And this takes up a single layer. This is one voice for every key hit that you do is going to take up this. So you've got unprecedented access to samples at a very low level. The key map itself doesn't do very much. It feeds, pardon me. The key map feeds into a layer, and we'll just have a quick look back at the PC3. You can probably see my dogs in the background making an absolute racket, and I told them to be very quiet while I'm doing this, but they didn't listen to me. In any case, let's go and have a very quick look at a program and a layer. So a key map. So if you press the key map key, what we've got here, we've got a key map in this case of 174. It's a sawtooth wave, and there's samples assigned to that. There's so if you have a look at it, you can see that between C0 and G1, it's got this sample. As you go up, whoops. As you go up the different ranges, you can see there's different samples assigned to different ranges. Okay, so okay, so once you've built your key map, or once you've selected the key map on the PC3, it then gets processed by a layer, and it starts as a key map. It then moves through these different blocks that are in the algorithm here. So your key map essentially starts over here on the left. It goes through, in this case, a sawtooth wave which completely overwrites it, and then it goes through a low pass filter. And so this is one layer. You've got 4 blocks per layer plus the pitch block and the amp block. The pitch block actually comes up here at the front. The amp block comes here at the end after the low pass filter. If you're using cascade mode, you can bypass those, but cascade mode will leave for another time. But cascade mode essentially allows you to route signals from one layer to another layer, and to make very complex programs. You can send one layer to multiple layers. You can mix 2 layers into a single layer and do things with them. You can cross-modulate them. You can do all sorts of wonderful things. But with 32, every program's got 32 layers available to it. So if you start thinking about that, you've got the samples and the different keys that we talked about, the velocity switching, and then you've got 32 channels of that's available. So you've got incredible flexibility. Every layer can be different. It can have different algorithms. It can do different processing. They can all be unique. They can all be the same. You can stack them. You can duplicate them. So your program really is the heart and soul of the PC3, and this is where all the good juicy programming happens. So if we go back to the graphic again, we'll see that we had the different layers there. So these are all stacked up on a single program. So you can have up to 32 of these layers in a program, and then what then happens is that program is controlled by a setup. Now, as I said before, in program mode, you have a special setup which controls that single channel. But if you go into setup mode, you can have up to 16 zones, and each zone can have its own program on it. Each zone can have its own arpeggiator, plus it can have its own riff. You can assign sliders for that layer and how they behave. So you've got 9 sliders, 2 wheels, a couple of foot switches, a couple of panel switches, you've got a foot pedal as well. All of these things can be assigned independently. You can, for example, you can, on layer 1 you might have the data slider sending MIDI controller 6, but you might say, oh, but on the on layer 2 I actually want that to control the volume, so you can say that that slider controls the volume for layer for zone 2. For zone 3, which is essentially in setup terms, zone is like a MIDI channel. You can say zone 3, I don't want it to do anything, it can just sit there, so you can actually turn it off. Also on each channel you can say whether or not you want that slider to be transmitted over MIDI, or whether it's only going to be used internally. So that's really the setup mode. It's the overall. I guess it's the overall, the highest level object that you've got within the PC3, and a setup can have all these things packed into it, and they're all listed. If you look at the object maps and how these things are saved, they're all listed as separate objects, but they all sort of get packed into that one setup. So a setup can be extremely powerful on the PC3, and it's probably the most daunting thing to program. You'll notice that I haven't put the effects on the graphic that we've got there. The effects can come in at the program level. Usually you've got insert effects on each layer. You can also borrow or reroute outputs of one layer into the effects of another layer. You can have a separate effect chain for each and every layer, up to the usage of the effects. You can also overwrite the effects in effects mode or in the setup mode, and you can also control the auxiliary effects either from program mode, from setup mode, song mode, or from the effects page. So the effects, again, is a classroom for another time. The KD effects that are available on the PC3 are extremely powerful. They're very, very good quality effects. The reverbs in particular, I'm particularly impressed with. So the effects are very, very deep, and they're almost like learning to program, like learning to program vast, all from scratch. So what you've got here with the PC3 is, we'll just run through it again. We've just gone through the different modes. You've got program mode, which is single channel mode. It's where you design your sounds. You have setup mode, which is your overall, where you can do your layering, your splitting, and you can do your advanced programming. You can reassign controllers. You have quick access mode, which is a performance mode to let you very quickly change programs or change setups. Effects mode, if you remember, is the master effects. So it's the overall effects. You can control the master effects bus, and you can also control a number of the different insert effects, whether and auxiliary effects, whether post or pre, and also whether or not you can turn the effects on and off for each channel. You have MIDI mode, which controls all things MIDI within the PC3. Master mode, which controls those things that come that are global to the PC3, where you can do system maintenance, you can do your operating system upgrades, for example. Song mode is your sequencer, and storage mode is where you save things to disk. So, look, I hope this has given you a little bit of an overview, a little bit of an understanding about the PC3, the complexity of it, and where things sit in terms of trying to learn what the PC3 is capable of, what you can do with it, and some of the, I guess, I hope to give you a little bit of the inkling of the power of the PC3 and the way that Kurzweil have programmed things. Look, I think we've been going here for nearly an hour, so oh no, sorry, half an hour. So look, we can keep going for a little bit longer. If anyone's got any questions, I haven't seen much chat on the chat up there, but no questions. Look, the intention of these tutorials, I want to try and do a little bit more in terms of the programming, and I want to get into a bit more of the technical and more of the advanced programming relatively quickly. I can't commit to a schedule for the for doing these tutorials. My time is very stretched at the moment. I've got a young family. I've got 2 kids under 2, and I try and like to give my wife as much support as I can with that, and I try to spend as much time as I can with my kids. So, but when I do get a chance, I'd like to try and do these sort of video tutorials. Writing tutorials for Kunker and for the Godlike website is a very time-consuming exercise. It's rewarding, but it is it is a very time-consuming exercise. So I sort of thought I'd have a look at this and see if this is a feasible alternative to try and get some information across to you guys in a more efficient manner for me. And look, hit me up with comments if you like what you've seen. Let me know if there's things that you want changed, if you've got some ideas for tutorials that you'd like to see or things that you want to learn about. Look, let me know. Hit me up at in the Kunker forums. I'm around there. I want to try and make these a bit more interactive as well. So I'd like to sort of, we'll have a subject, for example. We might look at effects programming, and we want to start getting some of the you guys come in and sort of say, oh look, how can I do this? How do you program delays, for example, or what's your suggestion about how I can plan out effects maps, for example, or how do I assign them within setups? So I'd like to make these interactive. I'd like to get a bit of feedback from you guys and tell me what you like or what you don't like. And while we're doing the tutorials, if you're online, drop us a comment and sort of say, oh look, I didn't quite catch that. Can you go through it? Can you explain what you did there? Can you tell me why you chose that particular value or why you chose that particular algorithm? And that's the sort of way I want to make these, so that I want them to be interactive for the guys that are, for you guys that are online watching. I think we'll probably wrap it up there. It's half hour's been a pretty good trial for the first go. I'm going to go back and have a look at this video and see how we go in terms of levels, in terms of the camera, and have a look and see what it looks like on Ustream. I apologise for the ads. Ustream is a free service, so they got to make their revenue by sending ads. I don't make nothing off it, unfortunately. But look, I want to try and give you guys as much knowledge as I can from my PC3 and make it a rewarding experience for you guys, and that's what I've sort of always been about when I've been doing these tutorials, and the support that I've given the community through the years. Hit us up at kunker.com, get into the forums at CUNKA.com. Brian Cowell's the bloke over there who's running those forums, and he's doing a pretty good job over there. I try and help him out as best I can. My website is godlike.com.au, proudly based here in Australia. If you want to check out, we've got some sounds available there. The Bravo sound set, for example, there's some Kurzweil stuff. There's a whole bunch of other stuff about music that we've done and whatnot. But look, come along, drop us an email. Always love to hear from you guys. And I'm going to sign off now. So thanks for watching those guys that came online, and I hope to see you again soon when we do another one. See ya.